Oh my god. What do you think? I was going to say something different right there? Well, I would say that bamboozling you is easy peasy lemon squash. Hello everybody, I recently mentioned that I picked up a new main character in this game, and in this video I'm going to bring you my full guide for how to play that character. As you've guessed, it's going to be Negan. What an amazing design. I'd been admiring Negan from afar for a while, kind of like having a crush on somebody at work, but I finally bit the bullet and asked him out on a date, and it's been a whirlwind romance so far. I would recommend this character to everybody. The fun factor is just really big. If I had to make a list of the most satisfying to hit with moves in Tekken, pretty much half the list would be Negan moves. They did a great job with this move list. Not as great of a job with the face, maybe. That's a little bit awkward, but maybe that's by the by. Before we jump into details, I just want to give you a quick introduction to the character so you can get a feel for whether or not he's for you. The thing about Negan is that he's actually very versatile. You can play him in a couple of different ways, and you should probably be adapting to whatever your opponent is doing. But for defensive play, you actually have very decent movement, some very decent whiff punishment, and then amazing block punishment. One of the first things that happened when I started playing him was my player stat for punishment proficiency went up to S+. It's just really easy to lay intuitive and powerful block punishment on the opponent with this character. So easily one of his biggest assets. When you're up close, you actually have surprisingly good aggressive pokes with him. Some really good stuff with his jab strings. A lot of safety. Some cool counter hit stuff, counter hit things in there. And then you also have very fast lows overall. Down 3, 15 frames. Down 4. Generic down 4 from a standing position, which is rare and very precious because it's 12 frames to impact, high crush, and then you can stay in crouch if you want to. So really good fast lows as well. You can mix up from stance with the character using Intimidation stance, which is important as well. But the final and I think most interesting niche that Negan has, if you're a Tekken traditionalist kind of like me, I think you'll enjoy this aspect, but he really likes setting up frame traps, and sometimes he's even hunting specifically for the trade with this shove, which is really cool. So yeah, versatile, can do a lot of different things, and I think even though, you know, there's a high skill ceiling with the character, he's actually kind of basic overall and easy to learn. So I think a great character to start with for new players, and something you will really enjoy if you're already a fairly advanced player. Now, for the actual guide now, I think I'm going to keep it kind of free form and sort of float around the place, which will give it all less structure, but I think it will make for a better guide overall. So hopefully that makes sense. I think I want to start with Intimidation stance, and the main really important thing you need to understand about this stance to be able to mix successfully with it. So Intimidation stance looks like this. It's when he places Lucille on his shoulder. Lucille is kind of the companion character. It's kind of a Ferrator sort of thing here. But you can go in manually with 3+4, which you almost never do. And you can walk forwards and back when in the stance, which you again almost never do. It's more kind of like Savage. You transition from a move and then you attack right away, sort of a situation. So the way you get into the stance from moves is with Negan's attacks, many of them that use the 2 button, which is the hand that he holds Lucille in. You can hold the 2 button down, and instead of recovering back to his normal stance, Negan will recover into Intimidation, and then you can attack from the stance, right? Now the thing about being in Intimidation is that your fastest move is 14 frames. It's the 1-2, which looks like this. So the fastest move being 14, what does that mean? And this is where you really need to engage your Tekken brain, right? If the fastest move is 14, that means that anytime you can transition into this stance with 5 frames of advantage or more, your fastest option is completely uninterruptible, and the opponent has to respect the stance. And that's very, very important. It's very important with this character, especially if you're playing against somebody who's good, who has a bit of matchup knowledge, that you represent and make them respect Intimidation 1-2. It's absolutely crucial. If you don't, the stance falls apart right away. And the reason for that is a lot of your other powerful moves from the stance, like 2 for example, they're quite a bit slower. And if you're doing slow stuff from the stance all the time, the opponent doesn't have to stand there and be intimidated by intimidation stance. They can get out in a variety of ways. They can dick jab, for example. But if you go in with enough advantage that 1-2 is uninterruptible and you show the 1-2, now they have to actually wait and respect the stance, and that is what opens up the space and the breathing room for you to apply your other powerful intimidation moves, like the low, for example. So absolutely crucial. If you're not getting a lot of mileage out of intimidation, it's probably because you're not using intimidation 1-2 the way you have to and the way you're supposed to. So the thing about Intimidation 1-2 is that it should pretty much, every single time you use it, it should be hit confirmed. The one exception, I guess, being shove on counter hit. But every other time you use it, it should always be hit confirmed. So maybe that sounds intimidating if you don't have a lot of experience with hit confirms, but don't worry, this is like the most intuitive and forgiving hit confirm in Tekken history, basically. And if you can start with this, then you're gonna understand and get good at this concept really quickly with just a tiny bit of practice. So the way the hit confirm works, if you're new to the concept, is you're going to do the first hit of the 1-2, and only when you see that it's connected do you press the button, the second button, and finish the string. And if you do that correctly, it's still going to be natural, and you're guaranteed to get, the second hit. The reason this is so important is because the second hit of this string is -13 on block, so punishable, and you will get punished for getting this blocked. So that's what you're trying to avoid by performing the hit confirm. So if I go in here, I do the first of this string and I see Yoshi block it, I hit the brakes, I don't pull the trigger on the second hit, and I'm completely safe, which is really cool, right? So as long as you're transitioning into the stance with 5 frames of advantage or more, and you are applying this move and hit confirming it, not only are you uninterruptible, you are completely safe. So very, very important. And that opens up all kinds of power for Negan. He's famous for being good at, right? Like applying oppressive pressure at the wall. And now you can do things like going in with this, hit confirming, pulling the trigger, getting the wall splat, big damage, wall breaks, all the rest of it. So big important key to the character, and I think once you start playing him, this is the first thing you do in the first match online. You go in, you try and set up intimidation, and you practice that hit confirm, and once you've gotten good at that, the rest comes from there. I think it's a very, very important thing to understand. So we talked about those magical 5 frames, right, that you want to make 1-2 uninterruptible. Can you get 5 frames of advantage on transition? Well, luckily the answer is yes. I'm going to give you my top 3 favorite options right now to get you started. We've already seen the down back 2. This is your big damage low with the character, a bit on the slow side and a bit punishable at -14, so keep that in mind. 24 to impact, can be reacted to by somebody who's sharp, even though it's kind of rare, but you crush their toes and you walk in with +7. 7 is more than 4, so you have your 5 or more, and you can threaten them with your intimidation 1-2, which is really good. Another good one is the 1-2. This is very big for the character. It's a jab string, it's natural. 1-2-4 is a block punisher for the character, so you can actually use this as an alternative punishing option. So instead of doing the full string and getting 29 damage and +1, you do 2 hits, get 16, but also +6 and intimidation mix up. 6 again is more than 4, so your stance is uninterruptible and dangerous. Very important. And the final option I want to give you, and this is a crucial string again to understand for the character, is the down forward 4-2. So down forward 4-2 is mid-high. The second hit is duckable, so you can get launched for using this, which is the entire problem with the string. But if it hits It's natural, and if you transition, it's plus 10. So lots of room to do dangerous things from Intimidation. Excuse me. If it gets blocked, though, you still get, if you transition, plus 5. Again, 5 is more than 4, so it's a great situation for mixing with Intimidation. So you want them to block this stance most of the time when you're applying it, but it is duckable. So the way you discourage them from ducking here is you do the alternative mid-extension, which you do have, which is so great and so crucial, and the reason this string works. So down forward, 4-3 is non-natural, which is a little bit sad, you know, natural on counter hit, which is good. And if you get the counter hit on the second hit exclusively, you get the knockdown property, which is cool. But it is safe on block at -9, and it is mid-mid. So it doesn't matter that this isn't natural. It would have been nice, but the main thing is here, you need to show and represent this to make them respect it so that they're not comfortable with attempting the duck on this string, because this string is what you really want to use, and what you want them, I mean, if you get the hit, that's good, but for the most part, you're trying to force the block, and then again, you can mix from Intimidation. So those are some cool options you can use for getting into the stance, and you can start practicing that hit confirm and getting good at using the stance. So once you're in the stance and you've made them respect your 1-2, what other good options do you have from this stance? Well, a bunch actually. First of all, the 2 is the alternative mid that you can use. 20 frames, so quite a bit slower, but it's much more powerful. Get a guaranteed down 3+4 for a guaranteed 40 damage, which is really nice. And a really cool thing about this move as well is that it's +7 on block, so really good. It doesn't loop back into the stance, so you can't go back into another Intimidation mix-up. You have to mix from, you know, normal Negan stance, but that's powerful as well, so really good. The low you have is the down 2. 21 frames is kind of slow, but the move is fantastic apart from that. Great range and absolutely astronomical damage. This would have been powerful at 20, but it does 26 for some reason. So just really good. It absolutely chops their legs off, and they have to worry about this move as well. Very, very good. So once they're hesitating to try and interrupt the stance and they're not dick jabbing it, you can cut their legs off with this move and you get a lot of damage. So really good. Another move that you do have is the down 4-2, which is your balls to the wall mid launcher from the stance. Occasionally useful, I guess. The main problem being it's very punishable at -20. So if you have a hard read that the opponent is going to duck the stance, that's when you apply this, and maybe you can, you know, steal around that way. It could work sometimes. Don't over rely on it though. And then finally, one of the best moves and like most important moves for the entire character, and something that you have to become comfortable with using, is Intimidation 1+2. This is a very fast 15 frame launcher. It's armored and it's safe on block, but it is a high. But just, you know, fantastic properties overall. So if your opponent feels like they want to like swing into Intimidation stats and try and interrupt stuff, you can just armor through stuff with this and launch them. It also forces them to respect the stance on block. So for example, if you go in with this string but you get blocked, they have to be careful about swinging because they can get, you know, armor launched, which is really important. But the other really important thing about this move is you can use it to set up baits. I was playing a lot of Mishimas yesterday, and it's crazy how important this is in the Mishima matchup, because, you know, if Kazuya is over there, he's just chilling, he's going to throw some electrics, trying to, like, you know, scare me from far away. I can do stuff like pretending I'm playing Keep Out with down 4-2, but I'm actually just transitioning into Intimidation, and when he thinks it's time to go in and whiff punish me with an electric or whatever, I just armor straight through that and I launch him big, right? So very, very good. You can use it to set up all kinds of, you know, sneaky traps. So it's like a trapping move, and it works very well. And it's another reason, you know, along with the 1-2, that they have to actually be intimidated by intimidation stance. The one danger is maybe you get ducked. So, you know, again, it's really important to make them respect the mid when you're using this stance. The other moves that you do have, you know, you have a cheeky unblockable that you can tech trap with. You have some other mids, but this is like mainly combo stuff. So those are the main moves that I want to recommend from the stance. But, you know, you pick up the character, you go into a game, you try and transition into intimidation, and you practice this hit confirm, and now, you know, you've gotten started with one of the important cores of the character. But how do you play when you're not applying the stance, when you're just moving around the stage in neutral? Well, your main whiff punisher is the down 4-2, and this is famous for being like a legendarily great whiff punisher, even though it isn't really. Don't get me wrong, it's very, very good, but it doesn't have that astronomical range of the really crazy ones like Noctis, for example, but the range is very good. So this is the main whiff punisher, and what they have to worry about when they're attacking in neutral. And it does lead to, not again like astronomical, but good, solid, slightly above average combo damage, depending on what combo you can do. You can do some like difficult stuff and like really push the damage like into the mid 70s, but usually you'll get somewhere around like 63 for hitting with this launcher. But it's good. It has the intimidation transition as well, so you can trap people with it. That's good. A couple of other good whiff punishers that you do have. I like for 3-2 because of the massive range. 18 frames, kind of slow, but really reliable, natural, and sends them far for a wall splat, which is good as well. I also like sidestep 2. This move is so cool. A lot of fun to use. It's fast. So this is, again, a safe high launcher that you have from a sidestep. So of course you're meant to use it when you're up here and poking, and you set up a sidestep, you step out and you launch, right? Kind of like, you know, Lily doing a sidestep hop kick, kind of like that. But instead of like doing a move manually, you have this go-to canned option of a sidestep launcher. But it does really work when you're spaced out as well, because your opponent's trying to come in. You can whiff punish with it because it's you know, barely fast enough. But if they come in with something linear, like I played Elisa yesterday, and she's doing a running 2, and I just slide to the side and then, you know, cut her head off with this thing, and it's just a lot of fun and really good. So fantastic move to keep in mind as well. And finally, for good whiff punishment, I really like 1+2. This move is super cool. It's one of those amazingly satisfying to hit with moves. So you've got massive range for a move this fast, 13 frames, 38 damage, knockdown. Use it for blocks, use it for whiffs. It's just really, really good. So those are some whiff punishment tools. Once you're out here, you can also, of course, attempt to get in on the opponent, and you have a couple of options for that. A really cool option actually is 4-1+2. It's another safe launcher. This one's mid, by the way, which is kind of crazy, and it's got crazy range as well. The bat is really long here, and it works for just, you know, checking the opponent and surprising them, and then you get a full combo. It works for Oki, so that's one option that you can do. And then you have a Sparta kick, which is plus on block, but super linear. So you can use that kind of as an alternative to a slash kick, I guess, because you don't really have a traditional slash kick with the character. So those are the main options that you kind of like try and jump in with the character. And another good keep out move, of course, that we should mention is back 1+2. So back 1+2 is kind of a Swiss Army knife for the character, and I think it's the most iconic and like famous Negan move that you have, because it's mid and it's +4 on block. So very powerful, massive range, counter hit launch properties. It hits people on the ground. You can tar trap people with it at the wall. It's just good for a bunch of things. But the thing is, like, this move should not be overestimated by you or by the opponent. It's slow. You know, 22 frames. So you do this 22 frames, you get it blocked, and then you do it again. You only have +4, which means you're effectively impacting at 18 here. And like, you know, what Tekken character can't do really powerful, dangerous counter hit stuff when they have like a 17 frame window, right? So it's not like you can just abuse this. If you're going to use it a lot and get people on block with it, do this and then don't do it again. Do this into like jabs, or do this into like, you know, something reasonably fast. Otherwise, a good opponent who has some matchup knowledge is going to either sling to the side, which they can do because it's linear, counter hit you, jab out, do all kinds of things, armor out, for example. So it is a good move. It's a keep out tool, it's a pressure tool, it's a counter hit launcher, it's an Oki tool, but it isn't, you know, something that you can just do all day and not worry, unless your opponent is you know, not very good at Tekken. But, you know, another key move to the character. So those are a couple of cool options. And then when you're in here close, let's talk about some like poke stuff and some aggressive things, right? So you've got really good range on your one jab, which is such a great tool to have for any character. And then the extensions and the strings that come out from it are really good as well. So my favorite options are 1-1-2. This is high mid. So the final hit is mid, which is important. It's safe on block, and it's got counter hit properties, and you can get some really decent damage for connecting with that. So really safe and really reliable. You can just throw this and hope for the best. You also have, and this is a really cool string, 1-4, which is another block punisher, and 1-4-2. These first two hits here actually jail, which is so great. So they have to stand there, and then you come down with the mid, and again the mid is safe and has counter properties, which is really amazing. So some really cool string cheese you can play with here. Slight delay, not very big, very slight, but existing delay on the two right there, and you can skip the first hit of this and just go straight for 4-2 as well, and then you're impacting at 12 frames. So there you go. A couple of cool options. You have the 2-1-4. That's going to get you super low parried by a good opponent, but it's there. And then for mids, I think down forward 1 is the go-to option. Kind of standard. It doesn't look standard because Negan is kind of realistic. You know, he has like, he doesn't do these anime punches. He kind of swings his arms sort of like a person would, which is why it looks a little bit weird. But this is like just a super solid, good range down forward one. And then you have the classic Miguel extensions, basically 1-1 or down forward 1-1 is the duckable high extension that is safe, and then you can tack on a counter hit option at the very end, like that. And then you have the down forward 1-2, which is the punishable mid damage option that you can also use for a 13 frame block punisher. It's less powerful than this, but you can transition into Intimidation with +7 here, which of course is very powerful. So it's an option. But that's basically it. You use that and the down forward 4 string that I've already mentioned, and that's already like a nice offensive package to get you started up close, and it's going to do you solid. For low pokes, you've got down 3 if you don't need the low crush, down 4 if you do. They both have disadvantage on hit, but you should expect this for lows this fast, I think. Down back 4 is the long range option with advantage on hit +3, which is actually very nice, and this also has the legendary cheesy counter hit properties where you can do a plastic sort of a launch with 1-2-2, which they can get out of. If they're getting out of it, you can do mids instead, like a down forward 1-2 for example. It's kind of like Lucky Chloe after her 1+2 throw kind of a situation. If you do score this and they don't get out of the string properly, it's such a big bag of cheese, because it's like you hit with one low poke and you collect, you know, a round basically. So it's really amazing when it does happen. But this low is kind of slow, and I've kind of given up on, you know, constantly hunting for counter hits with it. If I'm going to like hunt for counter hits, I think I have better options for doing that with, and a good opponent knows how to slink out of this quite reliably anyway. But it's just a good low overall, you know. Reasonably fast at 19, good range, and the +3 on hit, so that's really good. Cool. And then, you know, the full crouch low is the full crouch down for 2 advantage and counter hit properties as well. So a good little package for being up close, and because you're you know, safe but at disadvantage a lot, like in that situation, Negan also does love his dick jab, and I think you apply a lot of dick jabs with this character to just, you know, steal back your turn and then maintain that pressure. So that's kind of how you play up close with the character. Really cool, really useful stuff. Let's mention some counter hit options. Thing with Negan and counter hits is that they are slow overall, you know, slower than average, but if you know how to set them up, they can still be very powerful. So one of the main go-to options is the down 2. 17. I would have loved for this to be 16, but you have to live with the 17. You get good range, safety on block, it's mid, and it gives you a massive chunk of 50 on a counter hit, which is a lot of fun. So it's kind of like a little keep out tool and counter hit move with the character. This is what I go to when fucking Lam is like trying to charge up his, you know, guaranteed guard break wall splats. He starts spinning and I smack him in the head with this. I break his skull, and then he doesn't try that shit again for the rest of the round. So it's pretty good. You also have, I mean, this option exists from your main homing move, which is pretty cool. So you have back 2, which is 16 high. So reasonably fast homing, good range. And then if the second hit connects here, and it becomes natural on counter hit, by the way, you get a massive 68, which is insanity. So a lot of fun to hit with as well when somebody's trying to, you know, sidestep and cheese you. So pretty cool. The new move that you got in Season 4 is up forward 2, and I think this is kind of shitty for the most part as a counter hit launcher, but it does have a really interesting and like important role in wall combos. But you know, 16 and unsafe on block. Most characters have 15 and safe on block, so you know, it's not amazing for that. And then finally, I think the main sort of counter hit option or mid that you use with the character is the shove. So this is 2 plus 3, and what it does is if it connects on counter hit, Negan will walk into Intimidation with plus 14, and as you remember by now, your fastest option from Intimidation is 14 to 1-2, so this is guaranteed. So whenever you get the shove, you're just going to walk in and collect this, and if the wall is behind the opponent, it's going to be pretty big. Would it be cool if you could get more than just 35 here? Yes. I think Negan deserves to maybe get a little bit more for hitting with this, but the move is good. It is safe, it's mid, it's massive range, and you can set it up. Now, I mentioned in my intro that Negan likes to set up specifically trades, and that is because of this move. So let's see if we can come up with an example here. I think Yoshi's down forward 1 is -4 on block, so if we do that, get it blocked, and then jab, he's going to be impacting at 14, and this counter hit shove is 14. So if we can set that up, maybe we can see the trade here. So something like that, just mash it out. Oh, we need to record as well. So like that, and then let's see if we can make the trade happen here. Okay, see that right there? The stun still happens on the opponent, but Negan is not locked into the and walking into the stance, which means that the opponent is wide open for whatever you want to do to them, which is, you know, the main goal. So you can basically launch them here for free if you get the trade. You can run up and do a down for 2, like this. Or I think a better option is you can actually just do forward 1 plus 2, which has more range and a little bit more damage. And it's actually going to reach from that position and give you the 21 on the launch, and then one of your standard combos on top of that. So really cool option. And like I said, if you know a bit of frame data, if you think you can trap an opponent into swinging at, you know, -4, maybe you set this up, or maybe you just get it randomly and then you run up and you collect your launch and you do big damage. So really cool, interesting, unique move. One of those really interesting little Negan things, along with his, cool little stomp that just make him, give him a lot of flavor. A lot of ideas went into this design, which I really appreciate about it. Let's rattle off some block punishment before I forget it. So I said the block punishment was great for this character. Standing 10 frames is the 1, 2, 4. 29 damage is really big. Just collect this. I mean, even if you're playing against a super safe character like Brian, if you can catch a Northern Cross, just something like that, and do this, it's just gonna, make them really regret going for the option. And 30 damage is big enough that you're actually inching yourself towards that win. So a great option. You can use the 1, 4. If you want +3, this only gives you the +1. You can do the 1, 2 with +6 in Intimidation, or like I said, the 1, 4 for the +3. So great options for 10. Then for 13, 1 + 2, like I've said, fantastic move. You can do down forward 1, 2 to get Intimidation mixing. And then for 14, you kind of have an option, because you have quarter circle forward 1, which is the knife stab, which gives you a guaranteed down 3 + 4 stomp for a total of 45, which is quite big. Problem being that a quarter circle forward 1, getting that out on time to make it come out at a crisp 14 in a block punishment scenario is difficult unless you've practiced it and you're very good at it. I think you're going to be late a lot of the time, and that's not what you want. So, if you want to use this, practice it, but if not, I mean, the 1 + 2 is a great alternative. They both have great range, and they both work for pushback moves, so they're both important in that sense. Then for 15, down forward 2, your main launcher, and that's all you need from there. And then while standing, the 4 is actually pretty good. 18, I would have loved 20 and a spark here, like a cheeky bob, but it's good range. +6, 18 damage. Then for 12, you have a really good option. You have your down forward 1, 2, but a faster version from while standing, and the same +7 and Intimidation on hit. So really damaging and powerful. 12 frame right there, which is really going to matter in some matchups. Those characters who like to abuse -12 low poke. 14, you have a version of your forward 3, 2 from while standing for 14. The only scenario where this really matters is when you block, -14 and you really want to wall splat. It can be pretty big. And then for 15, you have a fantastic while standing launcher and while standing 2. Great range, fast, big damage combo. Just a fantastic move. So really good block punishment, like I said, and really important to capitalize on with this character when you get the chance. I want to talk a bit about the wall and wall situations, because it's so important with this character. But before that, a quick word on forward 1 + 2, which is a notorious move for this character. Now, my plan when I picked this character up for the first time was to basically not rely on this, because it has a lot of like snake edgy flavor to it. And what I mean is, when you do a snake edge in this game, it's like either you get launched or I get launched, let's see what happens, and you roll the dice. And it's kind of like that with this move, because it's -15, launch punishable on block, but it is an armored launcher. But I respect this move a little bit more now, and Negan kind of has to go to it and has to use it if he's not going to get rushed down or bullied. Like if you're playing one of those characters that really like to pile on a lot of attacks, if you just show them this one time, they're going to know that they have to slow down. And again, it's about building that breathing room and letting your other powerful moves get space to exist inside of. So, it is good, but don't be one of those Negan players where you like start the round with it every time, because your opponent's gonna notice that quite quickly, and you're gonna get launch punished. But armor through a gap closing move. If your opponent's doing like jab strings, go through some of that. It's good, and it's high damage, so not a terrible move, but really high risk. Now, when you're at the wall with Negan, this is one of the situations where he really thrives. Uniquely, like among the characters I play, He actually does well without walls and with walls. I think he's pretty good at both. But this is a situation that he loves to be in, and the corner is even better. Obviously, back 1+2 is a key move here. Hits them on the ground. If it hits normally, it wall splats, which is really cool as well. So that's one main tool. And then another thing you can do, of course, is try to get into those intimidation mix-ups and then hit confirm the 1-2 and get your splat that way, which is going to be really good as well. Maybe we should just set ourselves to reset at the wall. Oh, it's going to go upstairs, which is why that took some time. Sorry about that. So there you go. But another really cool move that only really comes into play ever at the wall is back 3. I like back 3. I never use it in the open because, as you can tell right here, the range is iffy. But it is a powerful, reasonably fast low at the wall. But when this counter hits and you counter hit confirm it, which you can do easily because it has a nice big chunky sound cue like that, you get a free 10 frame block punisher for full combo damage, basically 55. So this is a great move that comes into play when you're playing with the wall. Fantastic as well. What else? I mean, that if you're block punishing near the wall is of course really important, and you also kind of like to throw. I think here his 1+2 throw is, you know, good players are going to break it, but it's an option that you go to sometimes, and you do sit on cheeky advantage a lot with this character, so, you know, doing a couple of throws is not a terrible idea. You have a steel pedal kind of for Oki. It's definitely not as good as a real steel pedal, but it is safe at -9 on block. It does hit grounded, and it is a counter hit launcher, so that's really fantastic. So something to keep in mind for Oki, along with the back 1+2 if you want to hit grounded, and maybe the stomp. So some cool options for that as well. But it's just really scary to have Negan pressure you when you're in the corner like this. And of course, they have to worry about that counter hit shove as well, because this is where the one situation where this is actually going to lead to really big damage. Now, for combos with the character, I think I've stopped doing like combos in these guides because I think it's better to just go to a great compilation videos of combos for the character, and there are so many good online right now. My recommendation these days would be Rising Soul, who has a great channel, and I think he or she, they have done every character in season 4, and there's a video on Negan as well, so you can learn the different options, and it's honestly pretty comprehensive, which I think is great. The one thing I want to mention is when you are comboing with this character at the wall, you can go for damage, but sometimes it's a really good idea to just go for mix-up on the Oki instead. I think it's more important. So what you want to do is get into intimidation basically for your Oki. If you just want damage, you can do this right here, which is down forward 3-1 and then the knife, the quarter circle forward 1, and that is pretty much going to be optimal damage most of the time. The classic people used to do to go for a setup instead was down forward 3-1-2. And then you can hold the 2 and go into intimidation. Problem being that I don't think the damage is very good. But I mentioned this move earlier, and this is where it finally finds its role, right? Because you can splat, do this, and then up for 2. You get high damage, like near optimal damage for your combo, but you still have that option of holding the 2 down, and now you're applying really dangerous intimidation Oki at the wall, which is terrifying. So probably honestly the best overall option for wall combos with this character right now. Finally, I'm just going to mention your wall bounce, which is this thing. Not amazing, but not bad. You know, it's plus on block, it's mid, it's hyper linear, but it's not terrible. And a go-to option if you want to resplat after this is, I think, the 3. This is a really good option. You get 38, but of course you can, you know, step to the side and do shenanigans. It's going to depend on range, but the 3 is a pretty reliable option to get that resplat right there. And it's played pretty much the only role that this 3 move fills. But it's cool. Moves like this and moves like this, they have like one thing that they do, so you have to keep them in mind and really use the entire move list of the character to really excel. So apart from what I've mentioned so far, you have some, you know, cheeky stuff like, you know, the backstep launcher. You can do unblockable intimidation setups with, you know, this thing. There's some stuff that I left out, but I think for the most part you have a good package to get started with this character right now. So I think learn how to use intimidation, do a lot of stepping and walking with punish with down 4-2, apply pressure, and learn to love evasively stepping into step 2, which is just such a powerful launcher. Use your forward 1+2 to escape pressure and get launches, but do it very sparingly. Always hit confirm your intimidation 1-2 and make the opponent respect it, and once they do, start really piling on the damage with your other powerful intimidation options. Capitalize whenever you have an opportunity with your really powerful block punishment to rack up that damage, and I think you're gonna do really well with this extremely fun, unique, and well-designed character. I hope you enjoyed this guide. It's, you know, my sort of new way of doing it, where I kind of, you know, do a stream of consciousness kind of version instead of these like numbered sections, but I think it's more fun to make. It's probably more fun to watch, and if you manage to get through the whole thing, I think it's probably a better guide overall. But I would really appreciate feedback. I'm thinking right now, because I always have a lot of fun when I do these, and they also make me like learn the characters I'm playing better, because I have to put it all into like words, you know. I might do one for just like every character I play. We've done Bob, so maybe, you know, Zafina, Eliza, maybe Katarina, you know, a couple of other characters. So again, feedback greatly appreciated, but thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you guys again very soon.